A new rule when you're committing a genocide. You probably don't want to describe the subject of extermination as inhuman animals, especially if you want the world to be on board with your cause, and you want to maintain your country's soft power. But in an off-cuff remark, Israeli Minister Dan Gillerman has done exactly that and said the quiet part out loud.
You know, I'm very puzzled by the constant concern which the world and also Britain, I must say, Mark, is showing for the Palestinian people, and is actually showing for these horrible, inhuman animals who have done the worst atrocities that this century has seen, and the worst atrocities that Jews have suffered since the Holocaust. I mean, you know, when the United States reacted to 9/11, I don't remember people shedding tears for the Taliban or Al-Qaeda. Your country, Mark, actually, Britain, actually joined them and even sent your royals to fight in Afghanistan. When the Ukrainians reacted to Russia's invasion, I don't remember people worrying about the poor Russian soldiers and whether they had enough food. All of a sudden, when it comes to Israel, everybody's becoming a great humanitarian, totally forgetting what happened 2.5 weeks ago, which is unforgettable and unforgiven.
You know, this is going to sound ironic coming from me, but I actually have more respect for these openly fascist people who don't hide behind PC culture in order to express their genocidal intentions. Yeah, I have more respect for them than I do for these fascist liberals for Israel, who basically hide behind soft power by pink-washing Israel, by making it seem like a bastion of gay rights or women's rights in the Middle East, and basically making the Palestinians seem like backward and barbaric savages in an indirect way in order to appeal to liberal or left-wing sensibilities. Yes, I actually have more respect for these open fascists who openly express their genocidal intentions, who openly express their bloodthirsty instincts to the world. Yes, this is not the first time that the Israeli government or members of the Israeli government have expressed genocidal hatred towards Palestinians. Back in 2014, Ayelet Shaked is quoted to have posted on her social media page that not only the terrorists have to die, but also the mothers of the martyrs have to go. And I quote, so that no more little snakes will be born, right? Clearly, these Israeli politicians do not make a distinction between Hamas terrorists and the people of Palestine, right? They have made their genocidal, bloodthirsty ambitions very, very, very clear. And I suggest that we start believing them, considering that actions really do speak louder than words. And over 7,000 Palestinians have been slaughtered, right? 1,300 Israeli settlers were indeed slaughtered in cold blood by Hamas terrorists, right? But as of today, as of October 7th, over 7,000 Palestinians in Gaza who may or may not, most likely are not, Hamas militants have been slaughtered in cold blood in what can only be described as a scorched earth campaign in order to raise Gaza to the ground and collectively punish the people in Gaza, right? Blocking off food, blocking off humanitarian aid, blocking off medical supplies in one of the most densely packed open-air prisons. It is clear what Israel is trying to do, right? By telling the Gazans that the only way you can survive is by leaving, right? They are basically trying to repeat Nakba. They're trying to create a Nakba 2.0, right? Of course, mainstream Western media tends to hush the genocidal intentions that come from the Israeli side and amplify the radical voices that come from the Palestinian side, right? While ignoring the fact that, millions of Palestinians have been displaced, right? They have been kicked out of their own homeland, right? And been turned into refugees through no fault of their own, right? In the Nakba of 1948, 750,000 Palestinians were forcefully evicted, and the very creation of Israel was created in blood, right? What became a dream for some became a nightmare for many, right? And if you're going to say that Hamas started it, that is acting as if history only began when Hamas started killing innocent Israeli people. Because in the wider scheme of things, Hamas only exists, right, because of the appalling material conditions that Israel created for the millions of Palestinians who are living in a nightmare even today, right? The millions of Palestinians who are either stateless or enduring a brutal occupation on their own ancestral land, right? Hamas arose as a result of those material conditions. Condemn Hamas all you want, right? They are a nasty organization. But if you're wondering why Palestinians would support them, well, it's because, the Palestinians who support Hamas think that at least someone stood up for me, right? For the same reason, poor working class people in America support Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump is the only person who appears to give a damn about the concerns of poor working class rural folks, right? Even if he doesn't. But the point is, this Israeli minister very clearly did not make a distinction between an anti-Semitic Islamic terrorist and a 6-year-old Palestinian child who was bombed to death, right? And a doctor who lost his children but still has to work in order to save lives, right? Very clearly, he does not make a distinction, because to him, all Palestinians, all of them, are inhuman animals who deserve to be razed to the ground, right? At least the Palestinians in Gaza. And I imagine he also feels the same way about the Arab Israeli residents in his own country of Israel, right? Yes, Arab Israelis who support the settler colonial state of Israel would do well to see how your ministers talk, right? Yes, they have openly expressed their genocidal intentions, right? There have been ministers who even said that the only reason there's an Arab minority in Israel is because, well, they didn't finish the job in the Nakba, right? Yes. And guess what? Once they have razed Gaza to the ground and they have taken Jordan and Lebanon for themselves, guess what's going to become of you? Well, you're going to you're going to outlive your usefulness for soft power reasons, right? In order to project to the world the image that Israel is so progressive and so tolerant that they're willing to tolerate Arab citizens on their own homeland, right? Yeah. And they will slaughter you in cold blood. And that is why Arab Israeli civilians really should look at the writing on the wall, right? First, they're going to come for the Gazans. But then when there are no more Gazans left, they will come after you. But I, for one, am really sick and tired of this constant attempt by milquetoast liberals in order to smear, the detractors of Israel as anti-Semitic, right? As if the Israeli government and the people in Israel are basically the same people who were undergoing the Holocaust in Germany and Poland, right? These are not the same people. Just like I, as a Malaysian Chinese, am not the same as a Chinese who lived during the Opium War. I'm not experiencing the same material conditions, right? I'm not sure if that's a very good analogy. In fact, Israel has a lot more in common with the Malay supremacists who believe in the term Ketuanan Melayu, right? Which means the idea of Malay supremacy. So you can live on our land, but you have to keep your head low and basically, don't question, don't challenge the supremacy of the Malay race, right? Well, that's basically the same thing under Zionism, basically. Yeah, of course, you can have a couple of token Arabs in Israel, but as long as they keep their head low, don't question the status quo, and basically, don't even question the fact that there are people marching in protests, calling for your death. Yeah, quite literally, and you'll be fine. You as long as you don't question the status quo. Yeah, I mean, if you're an Arab Israeli citizen, you're kind of like the house slave, pretty much. And the people in Gaza, well, they're the field slave that has outlived their usefulness, right? So, basically, here's the thing. Israel is a prosperous global north country that has the backing of the Western powers and is in no shape or form an oppressed country, right? Israelis are not oppressed, right? Now, the Palestinians in Hamas, right, are striking back in the sense that they are reacting to the material conditions that would radicalize anyone, right? And if I personally had endured such brutal, such horrible material conditions, I too would end up becoming a terrorist, right? Yeah. Israel is not the same as the Jewish people who are being persecuted under the Holocaust. And you cannot keep trying to intimidate people into silence by saying, oh, you're anti-Semitic if you condemn Zionism, if you condemn Israel. We will keep condemning it. We will keep talking about it. Because what Israel is doing right now is basically no different from the final solution, right? What Israel is doing in Gaza is basically what Hitler was doing in Auschwitz. Yes, Gaza is the world's only open-air prison, right? They claim that they're not occupying Gaza, but in theory, they are not. But in actual fact, they still are, because Israel controls whatever goes in and gets out of Gaza, right? So basically, the Palestinians are trapped in that impossible situation. They're trapped in Gaza, right? They have bombs being rained on them with nowhere to run. This is basically no different in principle than gas chambers, right? We're witnessing history repeating itself. And these shit lips are just, they're pretending as if nothing has happened, right? Look at the Twitter posts of these shit lips, right? Not a peep about Israel and Palestine. Shit lips in Malaysia are deafeningly silent about this, but I will make a video on that I'll make another video on that. But the point is, Israel cannot keep pretending that it is the same as the persecuted and oppressed Jewish people in the olden days. Because the anti-Semites, the most anti-Semitic countries in Europe, like Germany, the most historically anti-Semitic countries like Great Britain, Germany, and Italy, guess what? They're now supporting the Jewish state of Israel. Isn't it ironic, right? So wasn't Theodor Herzl's his prediction, wasn't it correct that the anti-Semites will soon become our loyal friends? Yeah. Basically what they're doing is they're making the Palestinians pay for the historical crimes of their own ancestors. That is what they're doing, right? It's kind of like how white liberals in America basically say that Asians are anti-black, right? Asians hate you. Asians are so smug in their model minority status that they hate black people. And then what do some African American people do who feel that Asians really hate them? Well, they take their frustrations out on the Asian Americans, right? In the same way, basically, Israel is basically taking it out on the Palestinians, making them pay for Hitler's crimes, making them pay for the crimes of these historically anti-Semitic countries, right? That is what they're doing. They have a blood debt to pay, but they're making the Palestinians pay it, right? But no, again I repeat, Israel cannot be called the same. It cannot be said to be the same as the Jewish people in the Holocaust who were being persecuted. No, And if you support Israel today, you probably would have been a Nazi yesterday, right? Yeah, I repeat, if you support Israel today, as Doug Sanovia said, you probably would have been a Nazi yesterday, right? Because if you listen to the rhetoric of that Israeli minister that I just mentioned, who said that the Palestinians, not just Hamas, but all Palestinians are inhuman animals, do you know what it really sounds like? I'll show you what it really sounds like.
The thing is, Bruno, those people, well, you see, they're not really people at all.
Friedrich Nietzsche once said that in fighting monsters, one should take care not to become one, right? Unfortunately, Israel cannot be said to be the victims anymore because the Holocaust is long over, and while anti-Semitism does exist, Israel is now a thriving, prosperous Western country in the Middle East. And guess what? Right now, Israel is behaving to the Palestinians in the same way the Nazis behaved to the Jewish people they considered Untermensch, right? And Holocaust survivors, right? Holocaust survivors have openly called out Israel's atrocities, right? Albert Einstein called the founders of Israel terrorists. You can look it up if you don't believe me, right? Norman Finkelstein basically has called out the state of Israel and been punished for it, right? He has been fired. He has lost his job as a professor for daring to speak the truth, right? And Gabor Mate, well, Gabor Mate himself was a Holocaust survivor. And Gabor Mate also condemns the actions of Israel and basically acknowledges that his dream as a Zionist, because he was a Zionist in the past, right, would end up becoming someone else's nightmare, right? So, again, I have to reiterate that no, the Palestinians should not be paying for the crimes of European anti-Semites, right? First of all. Secondly, Israel, you are not an oppressed country. Yeah? You cannot pretend to have anything in common with the Jewish people who were persecuted and killed during the Holocaust or in previous eras when, European anti-Semitism would be deadly and would lead to some deadly pogroms, right? You cannot pretend to be that anymore because now the Palestinians are the Jews of today. Yeah, the Palestinians are the ones who are facing extermination, right? So, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. The Palestinians should not be paying for Europe's blood debt, right? And the world is not going to remain silent much longer, right? In fact, the world has risen up. Even people in Europe, people with a conscience in the Western world, are now raising their arms in support of the Palestinians, right? And I'm just going to end this video by saying, you know what? Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, right? Don't give up hope. And Israeli people, the Zionists are not your friends, right? The Zionists don't mind basically weaponizing the memory of Holocaust victims in order to serve their brutal, insidious, and genocidal fascist agenda, right? And all in all, the Zionists don't actually care about collateral damage that involves Jewish people. And if you look at how Zionists treat Jewish people who are not on board with their crazy ideas, well, look no further at what happened to Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, who was trying to be a reasonable and fair person by giving the Palestinians back their land and giving them a state. What happened? Well, he was shot by a Zionist extremist, right? Again, I will be called anti-Semitic, but I will not be silenced. I will not be intimidated by this, this idea that, anyone who condemns a fascist Western country should be called an anti-Semite, right? Because there are Jewish people around the world who are also condemning the state of Israel and have nothing to do with Israel whatsoever. And guess what? Palestinians are Semites as well, yeah? So if you're committing a genocide in Gaza, if you're exterminating the Gazan population, well, guess what? That would make you anti-Semitic, right? Because you're actually bombing them to death. And wouldn't it be rich if Palestinians actually had more Hebrew blood than some of you, right? Okay, well, this is going to end at this point. I'm really, really depressed right now, actually. I just want to say, keep up the good fight, and one day Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. Fuck Israel.